Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Katie is gracious enough to bring to rest a question and satisfy our listeners' curiosity regarding a question that we get asked quite frequently, and that is, what is her new intermittent fasting regimen now that she is postpartum? Is she able to keep up on her milk supply? Is she keeping up on her workouts? And what's her energy level with her current fasting schedule? And so she's going to answer that question along with some others in today's episode. Folks, thank you all so much for listening. If you are watching this, if you're able to like this video or subscribe to our YouTube channel, that is very helpful to us. Or if you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review or a rating, if you do that, that's very helpful to us. And if you're able to just, anytime you enjoy an episode, you know what also is very helpful? I'll tell you. I mean, it might be this episode, maybe it's another episode, maybe it's an episode from years ago. But if you're able to share that on Instagram or on Twitter or Facebook or any social media platform you have, that helps us as well. So, and if you were wondering what all the ways that you could help us are, those, I think I just told you them all. So you can do that if you'd like. If not, you can just enjoy today's episode and we'll get it going.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Okay, you guys. So I'm going to talk about what Elisha just said. And I feel like this is something that is a little bit taboo because whenever you're talking about restricting anything in pregnancy or postpartum, you can't recommend that. And so this is one of the podcasts going in our, we can't recommend it, but this is what we do anyway. So a lot of the evidence that I'm going to be presenting is going to be anecdotal. I'm just going to show you what my experience was because I felt like this was very helpful for me when I was going, searching YouTube, trying to find podcasts to learn, okay, how can I lose weight postpartum and still keep my milk supply strong? I was going to basically just hear different women's stories. I didn't want a doctor telling me what I could and couldn't do because you're going to get the same advice across the board for something like that. And I wanted to hear from different women what has worked for them. So while this is anecdotal, it is what I have copied from a lot of other women online who also cannot recommend what they're doing, but have had the same results. So that's kind of what I'm going to dive into today. And something that I want to say up front here too is when it comes to weight loss or getting your, air quotes, body back or whatever postpartum, my motive behind this is to make having children sustainable because I love our children. Elisha and I both just look at these little people and are like, you guys are the coolest. We love raising them. We love having conversations with them. They're so fun to talk to and see their little personalities develop. But pregnancy is hard on a, Elisha wrote a song, or did your dad write the song? Having a baby's hard on a man?
Yeah, I did not write that song. My dad wrote it and wanted me to record it. So I practiced it for quite a while.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But that said, it's hard on your body. And I just watch so many women with the cumulative buildup, the accumulative loss of muscle tone and a cumulative buildup of weight over time. And weight is kind of a leading indicator of our health. And we can see when we're carrying extra weight, it's not just extra weight. It's not just aesthetics. It can start to really fatigue us. It can make it harder for our heart. It can really take our energy levels down. A lot of the weight that we store is toxins in our body. And so these are all the reasons for me wanting to be very thoughtful in this area because we would like to have more children, I think. I mean, after Lionel, I was like, I don't know. I'm really content with 5, but in the back of my mind, I know that there might be another one coming, if the Lord wills. And so I just, what would you say to that?
You said a bunch of things, but I mean, yeah, we love our kids. We would be thrilled, I think, if we're able to have more children. But I will say this, just in regards to everything that you said, you have been exceptionally inspirational during this postpartum season. So I know you're going to be going into kind of your diet and your fasting regimen, but your overall routine, I think, has really contributed to this being, from my perspective, the most, I guess the best postpartum, where your energy levels were back so soon. You were back to your systems and to your flow. And then, I'll just, aesthetics, or not, boy, I like aesthetics, from time to time, and pretty much all the time, actually, with you. And it is certainly noteworthy, seeing with your intentionality, what you've been able to accomplish and what I've been able to enjoy. So.
No, but stuff like that, as much as we unconditionally love our spouses, there are things that make it easier for them to find us attractive. And I appreciate that about Elisha. I appreciate that, 5 kids in and he's still working out, still got all the muscles.
Oh yeah. Those pregnancies are tough on me.
You guys know what I'm talking about though. It's easy when your wife is sitting around on the couch eating food to just join her in that, and everyone kind of gains weight. So anyways, this isn't just about weight. A lot of it's about energy management. A lot of it's about hormone management, and just all those things are affected by our overall health. And so that's why this was important to me. So if you are looking into fasting postpartum, I say throw the word fasting out the window. And the first thing I would encourage you to do is don't eat within 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours of going to bed, and don't eat within 3 to 4 hours of getting up in the morning. If you can do those two things and don't have that fasting concept in your mind, then your body is going to naturally have that time to fast. And sometimes that's easier than trying to make a set hour goal, especially if maybe your meal times are a little bit more flexible or you need to eat at certain times. You can change that, I put in air quotes here, fasting window. And when you're just giving your body a chance to digest, you don't want to be eating right before you go to bed, because then you aren't doing anything to burn off that fuel that you just gave your body. You're literally eating that food and then going into a hibernation state where your body turns off its processes to some extent, and you just have all this food sitting in you. And then in the morning, when we're eating right when we get up, then we still have all that food sitting in us, and we put more food in there, and it's like we're over-fueling our engines.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's like it's pretty simple. And so when we think of fasting, I know I thought of when my dad would go on these like 3 or 4 day, or I don't know, he would just go and go and go.
Didn't he do more than a week? He would do some long fasts.
He'd do some really long fasts. And I was the kind of person who thought, I have a really high metabolism, and I don't think my metabolism's low. It's not slow, I should say, but I thought I had to eat at whatever time I got up in the morning. If I got up at 5, I would have to eat a protein shake immediately, or I'd feel nauseous. And then I'd have to eat right before I'd go to bed in order to make it through the night. And a question that I get often with breastfeeding is, what snacks do you recommend during the night? And I do not recommend snacks during the night. You don't need them. Like scientifically, you do not need snacks during the night in order to be able to keep your milk. And it's not your hunger levels that are talking to you in the middle of the night. It's your hormones, because your hormones often send you hunger pains saying, you ate at this time yesterday, you need to eat at this time again today. And so it was really hard for me transitioning when I started this pregnant in my second trimester. It was hard for me to transition to not eating at 10 and 11 my giant bowl of oatmeal right before I went to bed. And my hunger pains were excruciating. Like, I'm serious, they would keep me up for hours the first week. And the second week, it was still really hard. And you know what? Towards the end of my pregnancy, like after that first transition, I'm not hungry when I go to bed. I am not hungry after dinner. I can eat dinner at 4, I can eat dinner at 5, and I am just not hungry. So that's something that has changed for me. And it's the same thing within the morning. Now I know I go 3 or 4 hours regardless of when I wake up. My body doesn't stress out about it. I don't get hunger pains, and I'm not starving my body. It's just gotten used to, oh, I have enough fuel. I don't need to eat at this, at 6 in the morning. We didn't eat till 10 yesterday. We're going to be just fine.
Well, Katie, that's pretty crazy to hear the intentionality you've put into this. And I will say, from a home flow standpoint, our family evenings have greatly benefited from your intentionality around this area. It's kind of cool to see the trickle effect of you being. It's carried over into multiple facets of our home and of our evening routine, which has been really fun. I know you're speaking to it just directly from a health standpoint, and but I feel like the flow of our home has been so much more helpful and so much more life-giving when we were just done eating at dinner. I think of how the trickle effect of me becoming healthier because I didn't have like my snacking buddy, at nighttime. It's like you lose your drinking buddy and you're like, this isn't as much fun anymore. And I felt like that kind of happened with the evening snacks and the evening treats. And so it really spawned a lot more healthy habits for the whole home, which I've greatly benefited from and have brought a lot more life and enjoyment from life.
Yeah, another benefit of this is that if you aren't eating that, fourth meal at 8 or 9 in the evening, then you don't get that surge of energy and you don't want to stay awake till 11 or 11:30 or 12. You're tired and ready to go to bed. I start winding down early these days because we get up so early. But anyways, so that's really been helpful. So if you're breastfeeding postpartum, just the things that have been helpful for me are those eating windows. Don't eat on either side of your 3 meals a day. Don't snack during the night. Drink water. Drink tons of water. And this is another myth, I feel like, that is so perpetuated out there by breastfeeding moms. And that is, I need to eat to keep my milk. So you do need to eat to keep your milk, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is drinking water. You need to drink tons of water to keep your milk. And this is the most milk I have ever had postpartum. I have a ton of milk. Bubby is chunky, not Elisha.
Yeah, what are you pointing at me for?
But our baby,
yes,
he is a chunk. He is the fattest growing baby that I've been able to sustain. And my milk supply is just strong, and it's usually tapering off at this point. I was only able to nurse Leon for 4 months. And I did get pregnant with Lucy at 3 months. So there was that there. But with all my children, my milk has not been this strong. And I think a big reason for this, and this is something I got from all those moms on YouTube whose videos I was watching, was I was just dehydrated. And the thing is that if you are eating all the time as a breastfeeding mom, you don't have enough room in your stomach to be able to drink a gallon of water a day. Because water fills you up. Yeah. You need space to be able to have that water fill in your tank. And so when I am eating breakfast, eating a snack, eating another snack, eating lunch, eating a snack, eating dinner, eating a snack, there's no way I'm going to be able to get in that gallon of water a day. And so there's something about when you are hydrating at a very high level, you naturally are eating less in order to make that space.
Wow. Yeah, are you going to go into your hydration process? Because I think that is helpful too. Because oftentimes it can be counterproductive when you are fasting and drinking that much water. So are you going to touch on that?
Yeah, you want to share?
Well, I mean, you're the one that knows it more in detail.
I feel like I'm talking so much in this podcast.
Are you kidding me? This is your episode, and I'm mesmerized by all of this. No, just maybe state how you do make a point to put salts in your water because you do not want to strip away the helpful minerals, which can happen when you're not eating as much and drinking a lot.
Yeah, so I went into this wanting 2 things. One, I never dieted in my life. I really appreciated that I grew up with 7 sisters and my mom wouldn't allow a scale in the house. And I think that was a huge gift that she gave her daughters, and that we never had a focus on weight in our home. And she was very into, hey, work out every day and eat well, eat moderately, and you're going to be just fine. And so I really appreciated that. And that was my mindset all growing up. I never had to struggle through these disorders that I can really see now that I have gotten into tracking my weight and tracking more what I eat, how that could be so harmful when you're going through those seasons of body insecurity and you're just really young and impressionable. So it can affect you at any stage, but I'm just more grateful now than ever that my mom did that when we were younger. So that said, I had never dieted. I'd never done anything like that. And I'd seen a lot of my friends struggle with yo-yo dieting. because they did start young and they wrecked their metabolisms. And so they had a really hard time being able to eat food later on because they just gain weight so easily. So I didn't want to ruin a good thing. Like I already had a metabolism that burned food well. And so I wanted to keep my metabolism high. And I also didn't want to, I wanted to cover all of my bases when it came to nutrition, because nutrition isn't just about weight. We've all seen women who are very slim, but their nails are brittle and their hair's falling out, or, they aren't getting enough nutrients to be able to provide for their bodies, or they have no energy and are just exhausted. So they're really skinny, but there's no muscle tone there. There's no energy there. And I wanted vitality. I wanted energy. This wasn't just about a number on the scale. And so one way that I did that was really researching the nutrients that I would absolutely need as a bare minimum. And I actually get those covered outside of my food. And I know that sounds kind of lame, because I do believe that our food should be our primary source of nutrition. What we're eating is very, very important. But I didn't want to have to compute in my brain every day, okay, am I getting enough choline? Am I getting enough zinc? Am I low in B vitamins? And try to put my meals together that way. I wanted to just make sure all those base needs were covered. And so I'm able to just eat healthy meals for our family, 3 meals a day, and know that, hey, if I wasn't super balanced that day, I still got the bases covered. And so I use Electrolytes. Elisha and I both love those. And it's not spelled element like you would picture. It's LMNT. And so you might call them LMNT electrolytes at first, like right. I did, but the brand is Element. And they just don't have a lot of the junk that you find in other electrolytes. And so I have a pack of those a day in my water. So because I'm not eating, for the most part, highly palatable foods, when you take out those really rich, salty, fatty, sugary foods, those are often the foods that have the salt in them that collect the water and hold it in our bodies. So the nice thing about this is when you are eating those foods, you don't swell up the same amount. Now, don't look at my face right now because it's really early in the morning and I might be puffy as all get out. I have no clue. But you'll have a lot less swelling if you are eating those foods because you aren't retaining water, but you do need to retain a certain amount of water. And so those electrolytes help for that. And then the other thing is I do take a pretty substantial load of supplements while I am pregnant and also while I am in postpartum, and then forevermore, because frankly, I have always been gearing up for another baby, and I do think health is just ongoing with the nutrients that are now in our foods, even with organic foods. Just our soil levels have been stripped. Our environment is not what it used to be, I hear. And so I want to make sure that I'm getting those very nutrient-dense supplements, even when my food levels are organic and technically healthy. There's just not the same density there in our foods. And I think that is such a bummer because, I don't love the 1950s for, I think, every reason that other people like the 1950s. Like, I do think there was a lot of dysfunction in that era. It was just a little bit more behind closed doors. But something that you notice in that era is everyone's waists are small. And you look at the workouts that these people are doing and it's like, woohoo, calisthenics, lift your leg, like no weights. Wow, I keep like bumping my mic. But then now we're like sweating our faces off with these like HIIT workouts, doing CrossFit, like sprinting for miles, and we still are gaining weight and cannot beat that weight gain. And I just think that's such a bummer because these women literally went to the grocery store, bought the groceries, came home and prepared the food. And the way that the food was grown and raised and prepared and all those things just kept you slim. And now it's like we go to the grocery store, we buy the foods, we come home, we prepare them, and we gain weight. Wow. And it just really stinks because we have all these very high calorie but low satiation foods now. So you'll eat, an Oreo and it's a high calorie, but you get no satiation from that. You need to eat like the whole bag before you start to fill up. Yeah.
So you're applying your organic shopping list to the Oreos as well? Or are these two different categories here?
Well, I'm saying, yeah, that's a good question. No, but I'm saying a lot of our foods, even like, okay, you go get an organic, it has all the right labels, cereal. right, at the grocery store, and it's very high calorie, low satiation. And it even goes for things like meat, because you go and you buy a chicken breast now. It's an organic chicken breast, blah, blah, blah. And this is just something I read online. Okay, you guys, so do your own research. But it made sense to me that per pound or per ounce of meat that we're getting, it's lower protein and higher calorie because of the way the chickens, just their feed, their environment, the atmosphere, even when they're getting fed organic feed and all that stuff. There's a disparity there compared to the amount of meat you'd have to eat before to get a very high level of protein for a lower calorie exchange.
Yeah, that is interesting. Speaking of protein, I'm curious because I actually haven't asked you this in a while. Because leading up to having our last child, you were emphasizing getting a lot of protein because you were, you were taking these breaks from eating. You were fasting. Are we allowed to use that word now? I mean, you said don't think of it as fasting, but
oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I just try to get through the roadblock that some women
Yes.
have of like that I had too, which is like, I can't fast. I'm trying to feed a baby.
Yes.
And you can feed a baby while still doing these things.
That makes sense. Yeah. And instead of just going, and I think you think kind of extreme when you hear that word. You're thinking like 40 days and 40 nights whenever you hear the word fasting.
Exactly.
And so when you were doing this, you were being extremely intentional in getting high levels of healthy proteins in your body. Has that continued postpartum as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So something else, okay, no snacking through the night. Keep those non-eating windows open, breakfast and lunch. Drink a gallon of water. Make sure that you are supplementing with electrolytes and supplements. If you guys want a video on the supplements I took for my first, second, and third trimesters, I need to create this. So if you guys go to nowthatimamother.health, I'll have the link below, and I will have a video for you guys by the time this episode goes live of the supplements I'm currently taking postpartum, if you're curious about those exact breakdowns. So those are those things. And then I only eat 3 meals a day. And I say only because that is a solid amount of meals. And so it sounds funny to say that. But again, another bit of advice that is really propagated for breastfeeding mothers is snack. You've got to stay full. And 3 meals a day, if those are solid, nutritious meals, are going to be just fine. You're going to get plenty of calories. And I think that's something when we think of fasting, we think restricting calories. That's not something I'm doing here. I eat a lot of calories in a day. Like, I don't know how many calories I'm eating because I'm not tracking that. For me, that was an unhelpful metric. I got a little fanatical about that, and I knew it wasn't healthy for me when I started trying that. Just because I'm like, I like to achieve past where the standard is. So when I'm trying to, and this is unhealthy when it comes to calorie counting. So if I had a calorie benchmark, then I couldn't help but try to get way below that benchmark. Like to me, that was just, and I know that that's not actually success. So I ditched the calorie count. And so I'm eating, I don't know, I'm probably eating north of 3,000 calories a day.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not probably. I am right now. And as far as stats wise, I was at my pre-pregnancy weight within 8 weeks of 8 weeks postpartum. Now, I didn't have the same muscle tone that I had prior to getting pregnant, but I was 132 pounds. And this weight is going to be different for everybody, but I think it's helpful so you know what I'm saying? I'm only saying weight numbers for my specific body type and what's normal for me. Okay. So I was 132 pounds. When I got pregnant with Leon, my first, I was 125 pounds. And I have never gone back down there. 128 has been like where I've sat in between our pregnancies. And at 10 weeks postpartum, I was 100 and, well, I'll say at 3 months, where I'm at right now, I'm 126 pounds.
Whoa.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like I don't have the same muscle tone that I had when I got pregnant with Leon. So like my waist is still like inches bigger and stuff like that. And I'm not stressed about any of these metrics, but without too much effort at all, my body has found that weight again.
Wow. I mean, that's quite the sales pitch without too much effort at all.
No,
You're
I'm
back to
serious.
your-
I'm serious. Like I'm not, I'm eating a ton of food during the day,
Yeah.
you know,
Like your quality of life has
my
been
quality
good.
of life is great. Like my energy is great. My hormones are great. I will say, like when I was fasting, post pregnant, I did have a really hard time waiting in the morning and going the hours. I would get irritable and it was hard. And this has not been that way since not being pregnant. It's very easy for me to fast. And I kicked into doing all these things, I would say around 5 or 6 weeks postpartum.
Okay.
That's when I started being serious about my 16-hour window.
Okay.
Before that, I was still doing probably a 12 to 14-hour window, but I wasn't doing that full 16.
And were you doing that intentionally, or is that just kind of how it was working out?
That was how it was working out.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was eating after dinner, but I wasn't eating right when I got up.
Okay.
When I was really early postpartum.
Sure. That makes sense.
And I do eat a lot of oatmeal. I eat oatmeal almost every day. And that is something that it's not just the food. It's not just the calorie energy that gives you milk. There's something in the oats that helps you produce milk.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's what the Google says.
Okay. You got it. Okay. I didn't know if that was just your opinion or if you had
No, that
somebody
is
else
that is
backing you up.
something. Yeah, exactly. You never know.
That's good. And so then, let's see, what was I going to say here? Yeah, in regards to, oh, you know what? I forgot. I had a question here that I was going to ask you, but continue on.
Yeah, so going back to that whole protein thing, I guess, you aren't going to be able to stay full. This is at least what I found. If you're having carbs in the morning, you will be pretty hungry by lunchtime if you're just having 3 meals a day, and you'll be starving by dinner in my experience. So that led to me just kind of by trial and error eating very high protein.
Okay.
So I'm trying to aim for a minimum of 20 grams of protein in a meal, but sometimes I'm getting 40 grams to 60 grams of protein in a meal. That would be a very protein heavy meal, obviously. But if you can get between 18 and 20 per meal, you're going to be able to be satiated for 3 to 4 to 5 hours in between meals.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of what I'm wondering. Maybe you've touched on this briefly, but how often were you hungry, or how often are you hungry? Because that's not fun. It's really not fun living life hungry. And I've only done this one time when I was just trying to make weight for that one tournament I did. And it was just a couple weeks and I hated it. I was like, this is the worst. And yet this has been a long time. This is what, 6 months now, 7 months that you kind of have been in this routine. And was it just bad early on and you got used to it? Or are there still random times where you just kind of have to live through being hungry? Or do you not do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So with the whole pregnancy thing, I didn't care how I felt. I was losing weight in my pregnancy. So I lost 10 pounds when I started this while pregnant. So I knew I had extra weight on, and I was just committed to the process, and I was okay dealing with the side effects of irritability and all those things. Since then, my body has become very metabolically, and I would say this happened during my pregnancy too, maybe after the first 2 or 3 weeks, my body started to become more, what do they call it, metabolically flexible. And so I am able to burn fat and burn sugars for fuel.
Okay. So
I do not struggle with that irritability anymore. And this is why the weight comes off so easily. And this is why I encourage, again, you have to know your body. So not every person, obviously, is going to have the same experience that I do. If you start to notice your milk drying up and you're drinking a gallon a day and you're doing all these things, then yes, you need to eat more, okay? And you need to keep that milk supply, because that is the primary need that you're trying to fill for your baby, okay? So I'm not saying that this overrides providing food for your baby in any way. And I just want to be clear on that. But my body is in a state where after baby, you have extra fat. And so my body was able to kick into fat burning mode and use that fat supply to provide milk instead of using the fuel supply from my sugars in the food that I was eating. And so I'm able to switch back and forth. So if you're going into, how do I feel now? I mean, maybe you would be able to answer that better than I would as far as like if I have moments of irritability and stuff like that. I would say I'm not hungry the majority of the time. And I will also say I'm not uber strict. I do 16 hours 90% of the time, but if there is a day where I'm just really hungry, I will shorten that window to 14 hours. Say we ate late because we came home late, or we were at someone's house for dinner, or we went to home group or something like that, then I'm not hungry if I eat at around 9:30, before 10 in the morning. If I'm going past 10 because I ate really late in the evening, that is when I start to get hungry and irritable. And so for me, I'm not in any rush. I've already like far exceeded my goals, I guess, of where I wanted to be. And so I am happily eating at 9:30 on those mornings and not trying to push it. There are some mornings we go to church and I have waited till noon to eat. And I think I've snapped at Elisha a couple of those times.
Going to church in general, causes people to snap at each other, I feel like.
No, not on the way to church, but it's stuff like, he'll be like, oh, where should we go to eat?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, the wait is way too long at that place.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm just in like, it's 1:00 in the afternoon and I need food mode.
But that makes sense because I feel like that's probably been helpful in sustaining this, so that even if you eat a late dinner, you still the next day just jump in basically at eating from 9:30 to 5, something like that, right? 9:30 to 5:30.
Sometimes I do go around 10:30. Like
Okay.
if I am, like I've done that this last week and stuff. If I get into a good flow where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the kids' school, their morning chunk of school, and then I'll eat. If I get myself busy and doing something else, then it's not a big deal. If I'm just sitting around and watching the clock, every 5 minutes seems like forever. So there are times when I push it if I get started on a project, because then I naturally want to finish the project. So it's not a big deal to get through.
Yeah. That's interesting. So would you say in general, it was more challenging for you to stop eating after dinner, or for you to not eat until, not eat right away when you woke up?
You've got all the good questions.
Well, I'm curious because I know for me, I've never been hungry in the morning. And so breakfast I've almost had to like make myself eat breakfast. But the late night snacks, those are the challenge for me. And so for me, anytime I'm doing this, like hand in hand with you, which isn't all the time, I feel like I just have to go to bed early. Like we finish dinner and then start getting ready for bed.
So there's going to be, I feel like, either a morning or an evening. One is going to be hard for someone.
Yeah.
It's rare that both are easy to let go of. For me, the evening was really hard in the beginning, like I said, because I was used to eating this meal. But the morning is consistently the time when I have to kind of mind over matter it.
Okay.
More often than not. I would love to eat, right now, and at 6:30. I'm not starving. I don't have hunger pains, but like when I'm cooking the kids oatmeal or something, and I'm smelling that, it's like, oh, I could totally eat some food right now. That sounds fantastic. Whereas in the evenings, I no longer crave anything after dinner.
Yeah.
Which is great because like my chocolate craving and caramel craving and ice cream craving are gone.
Wow.
And it's not saying that you can't have those treats. Like the other night, I was like, I have not had sugar for so long. Like I want a Haagen-Dazs. That sounds so good. And Elisha let me run to the store right after dinner and get a Haagen-Dazs because
It's not like I keep you bound at home.
He keeps me locked at home behind in a pumpkin shell. I keep very well. No. Well, you know what I'm saying. I think that spouses let each other do things because it's like, hey,
it's fun for it's just a win. A win for you is a win for me.
There you go. I say let because, I'm leaving all the kids at home with him and I'm like, hey, usually if one of us goes and does something in the evening, goes and runs errands or whatever, it's after the kiddos go to bed because we're kind of both hands on deck after dinner. That's family time. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I was like, hey, and you even asked, you were like, do you think you could go after the kids go to bed? And then you're like, oh, you're fasting.
Yeah.
Because I'll have a treat, but I have it with my dinner. And when you have a treat with your dinner, it doesn't spike your insulin levels like it does if you're having it on its own. And when your insulin levels are spiked, you cannot lose weight. You literally can't. So that's where all the science of this comes in, and the science is fantastic. The Glucose Goddess is a great book. Fast Like a Girl is a great book if you want to get into the science. But essentially, this is why you don't want to snack a million times during your day. Why?
Well, no, once you said, okay, essentially, it's like, oh, here we go. Okay. We're just boiling it all down right here. We should have started with that. We should have started with, okay,
I know, I'm probably going backwards, but anyways, you have to, if you're into it, you'll listen to the whole episode. If you aren't, then you won't be here right now. So the whole thing with the spiking your insulin is you eat a snack or you eat a shake before breakfast after your workout, spike your insulin. 2 hours later, you spike your insulin by eating breakfast. 2 hours later, you spike it by a snack. Every time, if you eat 1 gram of sugar, you can spike your insulin. And I mean, that's a small slice of an apple, you know? And so if your insulin is in this spike state all day long, and then you aren't even giving yourself time during the night for that insulin to drop because you're snacking all during the night, you are just going to stay in this state where you can't lose weight. Now, all of our bodies are different when it comes to breastfeeding because I'm talking to breastfeeding mothers and pregnant mothers. Some of us will lose weight when we are breastfeeding just because of the extra amount of calories burned. So there are these women who can just eat 24/7 and have a hard time keeping weight on because they are just burning calories like crazy. And then for some of us, we continue burning calories at maybe 200 calories more a day or 300 calories more a day, but that's not enough to be able to burn through all the fuel that we're eating during the day. So for that woman who I'm more like, then you're going to want to give your body a break from those insulin spikes. Give it time to come down, burn a little of your fat before you spike it again.
Wow. That's good.
When I think of working out too, because this is a question I get asked. I got asked this by my brother who's really into muscle gaining. And he was like, okay, so what if I always do my workouts fasted. That's me, not my brother. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about that. And when it comes to actual muscle gain, like if you're trying to gain serious muscles, then you're going to either want to work out during the day so you can eat a protein shake before or after, or, a very protein dense meal of around 30 grams of protein to build that muscle. But what I have found is that's not the state I'm currently in. I'm not just trying to bulk up as the Incredible Hulk. I do want to stay toned. And I have found that I still build muscle even when I'm not eating 2 to 3 hours after my workout. And again, that's anecdotal. That's just me. But this happened through my whole pregnancy. I was just concerned with maintaining my weight. I wasn't concerned with any muscle tone during my pregnancy. And my before and after photos of like my back's like ripped at 39 weeks pregnant and totally has no definition when I started at 20 and 21 weeks. So you can definitely build muscle tone, and I'm very comfortable right now working out fasted.
Yeah. But that's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, that's the whole thing, your whole lifestyle. And I think that it is actually it's probably more enjoyable when you embrace this as a whole lifestyle. You get the whole home kind of flowing around this because you've been so consistent in your work. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but I think you've just really embraced the whole thing to make it more enjoyable because your workouts have been on point. I mean, every morning it's because our mornings are flipped where I get up and I lay around. Basically, I get up and make my coffee and sit down and read, and you get up and go straight to your workouts.
And then you work out midday.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, the different ways that our schedules go. If I get into my flow for the day, there's like a 90% chance I'm not going to work out during the rest of the day. It's just too much friction between me getting all the kids' schedules perfectly lined up and then not being tempted to do something else during that time while they're all resting. So it's just not worth it for me. So anyways, I gave you guys a lot of random information. You can totally listen to this and be like, that would not work for me. I know my body, she's crazy. And that's going to be true for some of you guys listening. Like I said, this isn't a tried and true plan for all female bodies when they're breastfeeding. This is what has worked for me. This is what I the whole reason I arrived here was through my own research, my own experience during pregnancy, and then also just what I've seen online that has worked for other women. But it really works. And it's been a big blessing. And like you said, I wanted something that would make having children sustainable for me and for my body and for our marriage, and something that we could still, just feel young and have fun and energetic and, have our love life be more enjoyable and stuff like that too. And then also just be able to have that energy throughout the day and not just have it be all about aesthetics. I knew I didn't want to, again, do something like drastically drop my calories. I didn't want to lose my milk. Like, the priorities that I have in my life start, God infiltrates all of it, but it's my marriage first. And so if I'm snapping at Elisha and I, am super trim and fit, like, that is not a win in our marriage. And then secondly, it is my children. And so if I'm snapping at them throughout the day because I'm on this crazy weight loss journey, like, it doesn't matter how good I look or don't look, And so, and then also, like, just for my overall health, I didn't want something, like I said, that was going to just have me yo-yoing and fighting and thinking about myself all day long. I wanted something that just seamlessly fit into my life. And yeah, it's hard in the beginning because you're tracking everything. And that is something I would recommend. I have a little notebook, and I still do this, where I track, I just put the date and I divide it's like a little skinny notebook. And it's always open on the counter. And I just write down tally marks for the water bottles that I'm drinking throughout the day, whether I worked out and what I did or not, the vitamins I took or not, if I missed, and and my fasting window, what I ended up fasting, whether it was 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever. So those are the things that I track daily. And I do encourage you to track this. So when I say it's seamless, I still track this because I started out because I needed to be reminded. But now I love it because if I don't work out for 4 days because we're on a trip or something, it feels like, oh, I just worked out. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but it seems like you just worked out and then a week's passed and you're like, whoa, it's Monday again? That was the last time I went for a run. Or I've been drinking water all day long. And then I look and I'm like, I've drunk a bottle and a half?
Yeah.
Like, what? And so it's really helped me stay consistent with my supplements because I used to always, I'd forget. Again, same thing. I thought I had taken them or I hadn't. So it's just really nice when I see a blank slot to be like, oh, I got to do that real quick.
Yeah.
So I have done that, and I would encourage tracking. But then aside from that, this really doesn't affect my life at all. It's a long-term thing. I love how I feel. I love the energy I feel. And this is something that I want to, this is just how I want to live. This is how I want to live my life. So this isn't like a sprint to some goal. It's just a way that I feel is very healthy for me to live my life.
Yeah, and I need to commend you for how you have kept those priorities so in line and you've not compromised on that. And anytime maybe that you felt like you were getting close to, you were so open-handed with your ideal, workout regimen or your ideal eating schedule. You're like, well, you're like, I'm not going to make this what I'm about. I'm not going to make this become an idol. And that happens, I would say, almost more times than not when you really get hyper-focused on like you said, a particular outcome, whether it's a set amount of weight you're trying to lose or like a routine you're trying to stick to, then all of a sudden it's like, in theory, the very people you're doing it for oftentimes end up suffering because whatever, dad's in a bad mood because, he's fasting, or mom's, short and ill-tempered because, of whatever. And you really never let it get to that point, which is pretty cool. And I think that as Christians, we need to be able to have that mindset with this. And so yeah, good on you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. And yeah, just that I would keep in mind, anytime you start something new, it is going to be hard for a bit and it's going to be consuming for a bit. So if you're starting this and you're like, this is not easy at all, then yeah, I was there, but at this point, it's just my pattern. It's what works. It's what's going to make children sustainable for me. And my mom really had that for her life. She had 11 children. She looked amazing through all of them. And a lot of people just chalked it up to genetics, but she ate so well. She ate 1 sweet a week, and she worked out every single day at 11 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was her rhythm. That was what worked for her. And if you're trying to have a lot of children and you have no rhythm, then I do think that health will suffer long term. And so that's something that I didn't want. And that's why we are here today.
You rock this. I was so inspired by this episode. Seriously. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Elisha. Thanks for being here. Hope you guys got something out of it. Maybe take something, maybe leave something. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.